In this video, we'll learn how to further customize the MARI user interface. Okay, great. So in previous videos, we talked a little bit about toolbars and palettes and how we can move those around kind of where we would like them to live. But there's really a lot more functionality inside of MARI that allows us to customize the experience to our liking. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit first about layout presets. So really everything I'm looking at here in terms of placement and the different things that are open contributes to what is known as the layout of MARI. This is a very similar layout to the one that we start with when we launch MARI for the very first time. Now I have made a few changes to the palette configuration over here just for the sake of fitting MARI into my recording area, but for the most part this is very similar to the default layout. So because of this, what I've done here is I've come up to the View menu and I've chosen to save this layout. So if I were to hit that link, it takes me to a folder inside of my documents, and you can see I've named that file eddydefault.mws. Now, this layout's great, but it may not be perfect for every project that I work on. So if I have a different type of project that in my mind a different layout would be better suited to, then I can create that layout and save that as a layout preset. Let me show you how that works. I'll just come in here and close out of all my palettes. Let's say I want to create sort of a minimal layout here. Something that takes a lot of the things inside of MARI and kind of shifts them out of the way so I get as much canvas space as I can. I'll just take a few of these toolbars and move them around a bit. Take this one and move it down here. All right, great. Say we like this one and we want to use this as kind of a minimal layout, something with lots and lots of canvas space. I'll go ahead and save that by going to View and Save Layout. And let's go ahead and call this one something like Eddy Minimal. We'll go ahead and save. So now I can see down here in my status bar that that has been saved, and I can quickly switch between them just by loading up the different layout presets. So I'll go ahead and load up my default layout, and you can see MARI quickly reconfigures itself. Now these layout files not only consider the placement of the palettes and the toolbars, but they also consider which of those palettes and toolbars are currently open. So if I switch back to my minimal layout, you can see here that MARI is aware that I have no palettes open inside this layout. In my opinion, this is a really great and powerful feature that allows artists to work exactly the way they want to work inside of MARI. So I'm going to go ahead and load my default back up here, just like so. Let MARI go ahead and reconfigure itself. All right, great. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the heads-up display and display properties. Now, the canvas is a pretty important thing in MARI. It's the area where you're going to spend most of your time working. And when you're zoomed in really close on something, like say for example this bandana right here, you've got about 25% of the canvas, in my case, that's being taken up by this text that's in the top left-hand corner. This is the heads-up display, and it actually has a lot of really good information in it. From the top down, you've got things like your color space. If you have patches selected, let me just select some patches. It tells you how many patches that you have selected. Things like your current layer, your current channel, your current shader, so on and so forth. Now, these are really good things to know, but once you've spent any given amount of time inside of MARI, these are things that you're not necessarily going to need instant visual access to. You'll already know a lot of these things. Now, in my mind, the tool help is probably one of the most valuable portions of the heads-up display because it tells you quick keyboard shortcuts that are available to you for the tool that you have selected. In my case, I have the paintbrush selected. Now, these, again, are keyboard shortcuts that you'll probably end up memorizing after you've spent enough time inside of MARI. So, in my mind, I like to actually turn the heads-up display off. We'll go ahead and go up to the View menu again, and let's just go to Display Properties. Here we can come in, and the very first option allows us to turn off the HUD, which, in my mind, it just frees up a lot of the canvas, so we can have more room to paint, which is always a good thing. So we can do a lot of different things here as far as customizing MARI. We can add a background image behind our asset. We can use the bottom and the top swatches here to control the color of the background, which is actually pretty beneficial if you like to darken that up and really kind of make the asset pop. If we scroll down here, there's actually a grid inside of MARI. I'm going to go ahead and zoom out a bit so we can see this. And we can access the display properties as well by right-clicking in the canvas in an empty area there and coming down to display properties. And the grid is something that is turned on by default, but again, that kind of falls into the same category as the heads-up display in my mind. It kind of can get in the way of not necessarily applying paint, but just seeing the paint that you've applied. So I like to actually turn that off, a matter of personal preference. So we can do things like enable a wireframe. Again, we've seen how we can do that right up here very quickly with this button. And then another really useful thing is this selection area right down here. This controls how MARI renders selections, both the color and the rules around that. Once we get to the selection portion of this course, this will make a lot more sense to you. But you can see here how I have some patches selected, and they're outlined in this green color. All right, great. So now we mentioned keyboard shortcuts, and keyboard shortcuts, anytime you're learning a new application, can be one of the hardest things for an artist to remember because every application is different. Well, MARI has one place you can go to quickly reference keyboard shortcuts as well as customize them. It's under the Edit menu and under Shortcuts. It'll access the Keyboard Shortcuts Manager. And you can twirl these little arrows and you can come in and you can look at the keyboard shortcuts if there are any assigned to a number of different things. So here's quite a few keyboard shortcuts that are assigned to different functions that are classified as painter functions. You can also come up here and search for a keyboard shortcut, say the P key. We'll just type the P key in and it tells me that the P key is for the paintbrush. And you can see there's the name of the tool and a description of it, a basic painting brush. So we can come in here and we can change that simply by double clicking here if we want to. I don't typically change these unless there's a very specific reason to, but you may find it beneficial to come in and change those guys up some. All right, great. That is the Shortcut Manager. Now, there's one other thing that I want to hit on before we wrap this video up, and it's called the Pie Selector. If you hold down the F9 key on your keyboard, you'll see that this little Pie Selector menu comes up. Now, this is a feature that, admittedly, I probably don't use as much as I should, but it's a pretty cool little thing you can use to quickly access different brushes and different colors. Now, this is controlled through another palette that we don't have open. So I'm going to right-click on my toolbars and open the Brush Editor palette. We'll go ahead and dock that in right over here. Now, we're going to talk about some of these options later, but I want you to come over and click on the Shelves tab right here. Now, these are a number of the different shelves that MARI has available to it, and you can see the very first one is Menu. Anything we save into the Menu shelf here is going to appear inside of that Pie Selector menu. So let's add a few things. Let's come over to our basic brushes and maybe select the default brush. Now, the way we add this is we can select it here, then come back over to the Menu tab and simply hit the plus sign. You can see that brush gets added. Let's add a few more. We'll come over to our hard surface brushes, maybe add this rusty blob. Takes MARI just a moment to load some of these alphas. We'll go ahead and click the plus sign, and that should eventually show up right over here. Now, not only this, but we can also add colors to this menu. Let me come over here. I'm going to select that basic brush here, and I'm also going to show you that we can access the shelf pop-up from our canvas by holding the K key. So you can see anywhere my mouse is, that menu will pop up, and this is actually my preferred method of accessing these different shelves. But you can see the options I'm building here inside of the menu shelf. Let's come over here to the color palette, and you can see I have a red foreground color selected. We can just simply click and drag that over, and be really careful where you drop it, because MARI does recognize which shelf you have moused over. So we'll come over here and find our menu and drop that guy in. Let's come in and maybe add a blue color to that as well. We'll go ahead and hold the K key, drag that over. Fantastic. Now, if we hold the F9 key, you'll notice nothing's showing up here. So there's a trick to this. Let's jump back over to our Brush Editor palette, and we need to rename these elements that we've saved inside this particular shelf. Now, that's actually very, very simple to do. All we need to do is come over here, select an item, Just double click on its name. And in the case of the pie selector menu, we're going to just give it a number. We'll just call that 1. We'll call this one 2. Give it just a moment to catch up with me here. And there we go. So we've named 2 of those with numbers. I'm going to come back over here and hit the F9 key again. And you can see now those 2 brushes are showing up inside the pie selector menu. Very, very useful feature inside of MARI, and probably one of the most underutilized in my opinion. So these are some ways that we can further customize the MARI user interface to our own personal needs as we're working on our assets inside of MARI.